A lot of our shifts start at 6 o'clock in the morning, so this is late for some of the people who work at Starr. So thanks for inviting me here, and I'm going to try to give you some information about what is out there in manufacturing. It's not just Starr, it's a lot of manufacturers in the area like us. Does anybody know or want to guess what we make at Starr? Starr Manufacturing in Vienna. No? Anybody want to guess? You think we make things out of plastics, wood, metal?
I say metal.
You are right. We do make things out of metal. And we make things as small as this pair of glasses. Sometimes we machine things very, very small. And sometimes we make things that are this room size or even bigger. We have some heavy-duty cranes. We have very, very high, what we call bays, which mean big halls where we build all kinds of things. We have a paint room, we have a machine shop, we have 3-tow motors, we sandblast, we do all kinds of things, you name it. We just run the gamut. So we'll start with, you all know what welding is, right? Okay, have you ever heard of burning? Burning? Okay. Well, we have a machine that some of the engineers or the draftsman, the CAD operator or the draftsman, will draw items out on paper and then put it into a program. And this special program then, it kind of draws a picture on a sheet of metal. And it fits all the little parts that that person has built into that program on that sheet in the best possible way to not waste as much metal as possible. Have any of you ever seen a dress pattern, like a clothing pattern? Okay, it's kind of like that. You know, it fits the space the best to save as much metal as it can. Well then that piece of metal, the operator will take that piece of metal, move it onto what we call the burn table. And our burn table has a layer of water in it, whereby a very, very hot flame, which is sort of like a welding flame, will move according to that program that's been put into the machine, and it cuts out all different sorts of shapes and sizes. And then we have industrial saws, and these saws will also cut parts to certain sizes and shapes. And then we buy parts to certain sizes and shapes. So all of these parts come together, and they often sometimes they go to what we call a processor, and the processor he may take a grinding wheel and he may clean off all those hard edges that have been kind of made raw by those other processes, by the saw or by the burning table. You don't want them sharp because of many reasons, obviously. So he may take a grinding wheel and he or she may grind that smooth. Then it may go to somebody else who may drill some holes in it that the burning machine wasn't able to do for some reason or another. Then it may go to what we call a fitter. What do you think a fitter is? Have you ever heard of a fitter? Who's heard? You've heard of a fitter. What is a fitter?
It's putting something together, like putting pieces together.
Perfect. That's exactly right. What I like to use is Legos. Does everybody know about Legos? Everybody have Legos or seen them at some point? Okay, how do you know what to put together with the Legos? What tells you what to do?
There are instructions.
There are instructions. Okay, in our case, the instructions are a blueprint. And the blueprints are very, very complicated in many cases. It takes some years to learn those well enough to be able to really read them for the very complicated things that we build. So, the fitter takes all these pieces that are coming in from all different areas in the shop, or maybe that we've bought somewhere else. So the fitter takes his blueprint or her blueprint, looks at what he or she is supposed to do, puts it together, and does what we call tack weld. So a tack weld, what do you think a tack weld is? Think of the name, tack weld. Anybody? It's a little weld, right? He's just hitting that piece. He's putting two pieces together, probably holding them with a clamp, he's getting his measurements correct, and then he's tacking those two pieces together so they stick together. Well, what do you think he has to use? What kind of skills does he have to use to do that? And I'm saying he because at this current time, all of our fitters are males. It doesn't mean anything. We have women working on the shop floor too, doing other things. I'll talk about those in a minute. But, okay, what kind of skills does that fitter need to be able to read the blueprint, measure and figure out where everything goes, and be able to tack weld it into the right spot?
Basically what architects do.
What is
Basically what architects do.
Okay, in which way?
They read blueprints, make blueprints.
Right,
And
okay.
well, obviously they gotta work themselves up by doing construction.
Okay, right. So the instructions, the blueprint skills are huge. How about math skills? Do you think they use math? Yes, and you know, a lot of our older fitters who have been doing this for 30 or 40 years will all say, I wish I had understood when I was in school how I would use math now. I would have paid attention. So, and I mean, they say that to everybody who comes in to Starr. They just say, pay attention in school for your math. You really do need it, and now I know how I use it every day. So they use math, they use measurement, they use blueprint skills. What do they do? What else do they do? What are they doing with that tack?
Well,
They're welding. So they have all those skills. And you know, they probably also know all those pre-processes, except the burning machine. They probably don't know that. But if they have to drill a hole or if they have to clean something with a grind wheel, they do all of that. And they can weld. They can all weld to some extent. However, we have other people who, once that part is all tacked, like you have your Legos, think of it, your Legos, you kind of stuck them together, you know, but you want to build something now, you want to make it permanent. So now you're going to get some glue and you're going to glue all those pieces together. So who's doing the glue?
Person who gets paid to do it.
Okay, we're not really putting glue metal. So I'm using that as a metaphor. Okay, so what are we going to do with that metal to make those two pieces stay together? We've tack welded it. Now what are we going to do to make them stick together? How about weld, like real weld? Now somebody is going to come and they're going to put what we call a bead. They're going to weld that space, depending on the spaces they're welding on. It might be anywhere from that big, and they might do what we call stitch weld. So they weld that much, skip that much, weld that much, skip that much. So it looks like they've stitched, like a sewing machine. Or they may do a solid bead. Or they may have to do a really, really thick bead. And we do a lot of oil and gas, as well as all kinds of other, other materials and other products. So the oil and gas welders and the fitters have to have very special certifications that are really hard to do. Some of our best welders have even taken that test to try to be able to pass it, because it has to be sent out their, what we call coupon, which is their test. It would be like their final test in that. So that coupon has to be sent out and it has to be tested. And the lab will break it, and it does all kinds of strength tests on it, and then it x-rays it to make sure that that weld is solid all the way through. And if somebody passes it, then they're called an ASME welder, which is basically an oil and gas or pressure vessel welder. Why is it so important? Now these welds are x-rayed and pressure tested. Anytime they put these things together, if they can be pressure tested, if they're building a big vessel or a smaller vessel, they put water in these and they build up the pressure to make sure that those welds are not going to fail. If they are building a big piece of machinery and some of the pieces can't be pressure tested, we will x-ray them. We have a company come in, it's an independent company, so we can't fudge. So they come in and x-ray our welds. Why is that important if we're building oil and gas and pressure vessels? Why do you think it's so important?
So the gas will oil won't leak.
Boom, yes. Boom, that's the best. That's perfect. Best description. So yes, those things can explode because when they get on the field, they're gonna put all kinds of chemicals in them, they're gonna do all different kinds of things with those things, and they're gonna pressurize them, and they're gonna be in all sorts of different temperatures. Almost all of those things go outside. And so they have to be painted, so we have a paint room. They have to be painted, they have to be prepped for painting. They have to, you name it, we do it. I'll tell you a couple of stories too. On our floor right now, our plant manager started as a welder. He decided to go to welding school when he was young, and he went to a welding tech school, to one of the public schools. So he decided to be a welder, so he was pretty good. And some welders, they say you either have it or you don't. And we see that because there are some pretty young welders who have been at our facility, and they've actually been professionally welding for less than a year, and they've been able to pass that ASME test. And we've had other welders who have been welding for 30 years and they're not able to pass it. They can do all kinds of other welding really well, but they don't have that particular, whatever it takes, you know, to make those perfect welds. But anyway, so our plant manager he started out as a welder. And then, as he went along, he decided, wow, I really could fit. My math skills are good enough. My spatial skills are good enough. I'm learning how to read these blueprints as I go along with welding. And I really would like to be a fitter. So he started fitting small, easy things, adding to that more and more and more. And he started fitting. Next thing, he decided, you know, we realized that his computer skills were really good. And at the time, we were desperate to find somebody who knew our product and knew what they were doing and could move from the floor and help us with some quoting. So, because we get a lot of requests in, and we have to do quotes for all of these. So those quotes mean how many processes, we have to figure out how many processes we'd have to do to build whatever they're sending us. They'll send blueprints and specs, what we call specs. So what kind of metal it's made of, could be stainless steel, could be aluminum, could be carbon steel. So all of that. They send those things to us. Our estimators and sales have to then figure out, all right, what processes and what order do we have to do? How much material do we use? How much weld wire? How much steel? How much aluminum? How much whatever? Then they have to figure out how many hours in each of those processes are we going to use. So we needed help doing that. And our current plant manager decided, okay, we brought him in and said, hey, can you help? You know, we really need to get a lot of quotes out. Well, he was so good that we wouldn't let him back out on the floor to fit because we had enough fitters at the time. From there, he became the inside sales manager. And as of this last year now, he's the plant manager. We have a young man who started on the floor as a laborer. He learned very quickly, same thing, his math skills were good, his spatial skills were good. He learned very quickly how to fit. So he started fitting, and then we sent some of our employees, you know, we asked who wanted to go, and we sent them actually to TCTC for a CAD class. And he and another gentleman just blew the class away. The teacher was Mr. White. He couldn't keep them busy enough. And this was probably about 9 or 10 years ago. He could not keep them busy. So we moved Ron into helping with doing these burning programs, which uses CAD, and doing some other things also in the office. Well, Ron decided to go to engineering school. And he's almost finished with his associate engineering degree, and he actually works in engineering with our engineer. Now, before I go any further and answer any other questions, I'm going to ask you a question. What else do you think, what kind of things do you think all of these persons had in common?
Math.
Math? Absolutely.
Brains.
What?
Brains.
Brains. What do you think they might have had in common?
Social skills?
Pardon me?
Social skills?
Social skills, yes. Like what?
Dealing with a lot of people.
Okay. Okay, well, we have some pretty surly people on the floor too. They talk along with too many people, but they do their work well.
I'll be able to talk a little bit.
Yeah. What else? What other kinds of things do you think they all have in common? What enabled them to be able to take their skills? Because you know, a lot of people have skills, and we've seen a lot of people waste them. We have lost some very, very talented people because of drugs. We've even brought them back and let them, you know, we brought several people back. In the last year and a half, we brought 3 different people back, all highly, highly skilled, very intelligent, and they failed drug-wise again, and one was taken back into a program we didn't have control of. One left because he wouldn't give up his drugs, and the other one left kind of for the same reason. And it's really, really sad because these guys were so talented, so smart, and had built up all of these skills. So we do lose people with drugs, so which is unfortunate. And I just thought I'd better mention that. What else is really important that all these people had in common? Just think of some things they might have had in common. And it's kind of soft skills, social skills that we're talking about. Although not all of them do get along. I mean, some people we have to put kind of in a corner and they work by themselves, and other people kind of give them things and walk away, you know. They're not exactly personable, but you know, they do their work well. How about, okay, let's start here. Do you think they all were dependable or not dependable? Okay, dependable. And what does that mean?
Reliable.
Reliable?
Other than the druggies, they're undependable.
Well, okay, so they probably went to work every day. They also, what do you think they did if they were given an assignment? They did it. Did they do it just, I'll just get this done?
110%.
They all went beyond. They did the best they could every single day, every time they could. They had a super work ethic. They really tried. You know, they wanted to learn more. They all wanted to do more, wanted to learn more. They didn't want to be bored doing the same old thing for 30 years. They wanted to move into other things and have other opportunities. And so they worked at that very, very hard. You know, we have evidence of that all across the board. You know, I'm not saying I'm an example, but I'll just say I'm an example. My dad was an electrician, and my parents couldn't afford to send us to college, and especially back when I was in college, and you know, don't ask me when, but anyway, I started working in an insurance agency because I had taken typing in high school, and I could type. And so I started working for an insurance agency, and I was not very sure of myself or any of my skills or anything. Well, because of that insurance agency experience, I was able to work my way through college and make decent money while I was going through college. And afterwards, because I found out in the meantime, when I did that I was pretty good at writing. So the next job I got was at an area agency on aging after I graduated. And that job entailed a lot of writing. I was a planner. So from that, I became the director, and then I moved. Long story, but I'm where I am now. But you know, what I'm trying to say here is, you can do whatever you put your mind to do, and whatever your skill set will let you do. You know, in other words, if you start discovering your skills as you try new things. Watch for your skills. Watch what you can do well. Watch what seems to come easy for you. If it's easy for you, you're probably pretty good at it. Stick with it. Keep trying to make it better. I don't want to bore you too much. I think we only have about 10 minutes. So let's how about you ask me some questions? Yes?
Do you have to have your GED or high school diploma?
We highly encourage GED or high school diploma, and the diploma. And one reason why is even our tow motor drivers, we cannot have a tow motor driver who cannot read. And that we know can read. We will actually test them to make sure they can read and understand what they're reading. Why do you think that might be? Why is it so important that they be able to read?
Because you can't pick up items and not know where they go.
Okay, they may not know where things go if they don't. How about things coming in? Okay, that's,
That too.
pardon me?
Like, if you can't read and then pick up items and not know where they go, and you can't take items off the truck and not know where it is.
That is totally right. That's one reason. There are some more reasons that, besides that, he said, did everybody hear that they have to know where the items go, and if they can't read, they wouldn't know. Sure.
And they want to know what the items are.
And they want to know what the items are, yes,
Yeah,
important.
The top motor, certain ways you drive it. Top motor.
The what? I'm sorry.
The top motor is certain directions to drive it.
The directions to start to drive the two-motor, right? You know, sometimes too, we get in hazardous materials and we get in hazardous chemicals. And those things, you have to be able to read those warnings and know what those warnings say so that you don't do something wrong. It's very, very important too, because safety is number one. There's nothing more important than safety, and somebody will get in trouble for a safety violation faster than anything else, because they could hurt themselves, they could hurt another person, they could close the company down and have everybody out of a job. I mean, it's that important. So, okay, so everybody has to read. Everybody, you know, most of the jobs have to have some degree of math, at least basic math. And a lot of guys have learned that, and a lot of the ladies have learned it. We have lady tow motor drivers, we have painters, we have, you name it. If you just think of a big circle and think of all the jobs that might make an office run and a plant run, we have them. Okay, how about some other questions? Yes?
If I wanted a job as a painter or at the burning table or any of the other aspects that you just spoke of, what do I need to be hired?
Well,
What would I need to do if I wanted to come to you and
Okay.
say, I want a job?
well, the best thing you could do would be to bring it, you know, to fill in an application and fill it in completely and honestly, because we're gonna check. You know, so if people exaggerate things and make up things, we're gonna find out, and we're gonna go, nah, in the no pile. And we get a lot of applications every day. So you have to make, you know, you have to make us want to look at your application again. So if you have schooling and you've done well in your school, or you've taken your tests, you know, you've taken those outgoing tests, anything like that, put those in there, you know, include that. Any work experience you've had, put it there. And one thing I can suggest for work experience, we look at steadiness as well. All employers do. In other words, we like to see that you were able to work at a place and hold that job for a long time and not constantly switch jobs. Because if somebody constantly switches jobs, we think there's something wrong. Either the person's not working like they said they could and would, or they're not coming to work every day, or something else is going on. So so stick with something you do, but put that down. If you've had work experience, put some work references down, not personal references, because all of your friends are going to say you're wonderful and great. We need your work references. And then you might even attach a letter with it and say something like, you know, I'm very interested in manufacturing. I'm willing to start from the ground up, because if you're coming in with no experience, you're probably going to start as a laborer, and then you can express your interest on things that you're interested in, and we will watch you as you do those labor or those yucky jobs, like grinding, like maybe sweeping up something, maybe helping somebody clean something, maybe moving material. Everybody else does those too, but you're going to do more of them to start with if you have no experience. If you're coming in as a welder, we do hire beginning welders. It just depends on the type of work we may have going on at the moment. Right now we need ASME welders, so we haven't hired very beginning welders in a couple of months because of that. Now we're trying to get those high skills.
What is that type of welder called? And what is it?
What is it?
Yeah.
The ASME welder?
Yeah. What is that?
It is a type of welding that they have to do what's called a root pass. So they have to do kind of an underneath pass on a part of whatever they're welding. And then they have to do another pass on top. And those welds have to be perfect and solid so that when they're x-rayed, that there are no occlusions, like there's no little pieces of anything, there are no little air spots. I mean, it's a very, very intense type of welding, but they make the most money too. So, how about, yes?
What y'all start out per hour? What y'all-
Pardon me?
What y'all start out per hour?
Well, with no experience, we've never hired anybody at less than $10 an hour. We usually hire at 11 or $12 an hour to start with no experience.
You mentioned one of your shifts starts at 6 a.m.
Yes.
Do you, like all of these people are in our classes, do you work around their school schedule or do you encourage them to keep working on their GED?
If we're able to hire someone, say if we wanted someone part-time, because we might be able to hire, we have one position, we might be able to hire a part-time person, basically to start out as a janitor. It's almost a janitor position, doing some cleanup, helping some other people, and then we start teaching people other things as they go. But that position, we may be able to hire part-time. And we do have what we call an afternoon shift right now, which starts at 4:30 when the other shift ends. So somebody could work that shift.
Come to class.
Right. They could come to class in the morning and then work that afternoon, up until then, and just get their work done then. So it really
So
depends.
someone could say, I'd like a job I'm working on getting my diploma. And
Right.
maybe that would be a positive.
They have to be over 18 though.
Okay.
Okay, we're not, DOL, the Department of Labor does not allow us to hire anyone under 18 because as manufacturing, even though it's not the old kind of manufacturing, we are considered a hazardous occupation because you can get, you can burn your eyes when you look, it's like looking at the sun. You don't want to watch the weld class without your shield on. You don't want to walk under something that's, a crane is moving, it might be 30,000 pounds. That's not too comfortable if you get squished,
I'm 20.
You're 20, okay. I'm not telling you how old I am. And I just had another birthday.
When it goes through the washer and stuff, I had a job where we, like, say if sand falls inside the washer, we'd have to stop the line and go inside the washer with what's called steam resistant glasses. Go inside there and actually go get that metal. I think that was the hottest place I've ever been. Because it's really hot in there.
That was hard, huh?
Yeah.
That was
And
hot
it's
and hard.
And it's only about this small, with gates at the bottom.
Yeah. Not everything is pleasant. Yeah. And that's called, when you have to go into a small space, that's called confined space, and there are certain, if we have a confined space where somebody has to go into a tank or something that we're building, there's a whole set of rules and regulations that we have to have, and we have somebody sitting out, we have air
You have to have
constantly
an
pumping
oxygen
in, we
tank.
have a tether, I mean,
Oh, no, this was like.
that was different, you walked
it's
in
like
it.
It's like a long walk. Like
And you
it
walked
goes
in?
around,
That's all.
goes around, then it goes in the paint booth. But before it goes around, it gets cleaned off. And like, that's right where we like take the metal off and stuff. And we'll put the metal up. And then like, I guess like 10 parts that was back there. I had to give up the job. I can't go in there anymore. It was too hot. They talking about some don't touch the doors and all that.
Oh, wow.
It's too tight, but the space is literally this small. I can't do that.
That sounds scary.
Then one day I left my glasses off. They said you can go blind in here.
Yeah, you don't want to leave your glasses. Well, people get in trouble on our floor for not wearing their glasses and their earplugs. It's not always loud, but if all of a sudden it gets loud, you want your earplugs in because you don't want to take a chance on damaging your
Yeah, all
hearing.
my jobs I had, I was able to listen to music, so it didn't matter.
Yeah. We don't let anybody listen to music in earplugs. We want them to hear what's going on. We even want them to hear the cranes beeping as they go. It says they know a crane's coming. We want them to hear those, the tow motor beeps and the rear motor beeps on those tow motors.
And the press
We want them to know, and we want them to hear if somebody yells, get out of the way for something weird happening. That almost never happens, but we don't want to take a chance.
You guys have like them big pots with the melted metal in it, with that, if it accidentally pours out, it could kill everyone.
Yeah, well, we don't have those, thank goodness. We don't melt metal, except with the welder or the burning table.
So what do y'all do with the leftover metal?
We use it, and then we
Because, like-
scrap it. We
like-
scrap whatever's left, and we often donate metal to TCTC so that their welders can use it to practice, or their machinists.
Well, I thought
Yes.
you guys.
So if I have a student who expresses interest in manufacturing, they're working towards their GED, what kinds of things could you suggest that they think about or explore to kind of figure out more if they're interested in manufacturing or not?
Okay, well, I would say, first of all, try to figure out if you have spatial abilities. You know, I don't know if there's a test for that, but there probably is a test. Figure out if you have spatial abilities. In other words, figure out if when you look at a blueprint, you know what you can sort of see the picture that it's telling you. You're not going to on a very complicated one because there's so many symbols, there's so many different little codes that thing is telling you. It takes a long time to learn that. But also, do you like to work with your hands? Make sure you like to work with your hands. Because unless you're coming in, if you're going to work in the office, you're going to have some office skills. So if you want to try to get an office job, which again, we have bookkeepers, we have HR, we have estimators, we have purchasers, you name it. So any of those jobs, though, you're going to have great computer skills, you're going to have good communication skills, and you're going to have to know something about what you're doing kind of before you come in, or at least be able to learn very quickly. So the more knowledge you can give yourself on that type job, the better. If you want to come into the manufacturing plant and you think that you want to get started on that, make sure that you do like working with your hands. Make sure you like working with metal. Make sure that type environment is an environment you would like. Now we work inside. The only persons who work outside in our facility are the tow motor drivers have to drive in and out. But everybody else works inside. In some places, you're going to work without heat and things like that. We
It's
have
like
heat.
guns on plastics.
Yeah.
Working in
So,
factories.
yeah. Make sure your basic math skills are good, what we call shop math. Make sure you can do basic math and also basic multiplication, basic division. Measuring is hugely important. We just found out a couple of weeks ago that one of our key employees does not know how to read a ruler. So now anybody who comes in, guess what we're testing? Anybody. We're going to make sure everybody who walks in the door that we're considering hiring knows how to read a ruler. And I don't mean 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch. I mean 7/8, 14/16, anything kind of weird like that. You know, you have to know what it means and you have to be able to read it because that's hugely important. You know, tape measures, we use micrometers and calipers and things like that. And those are measuring tools. Now usually only certain people use those, some of the inspectors, sometimes the fitters will use those, and the machinists. You can always go to welding school. I would say I highly recommend TCTC's welding school. Excellent, absolutely excellent. ETI has great schools, excellent. We hire from both of those places.
We went to Chopin for what's it called like body work on cars. Like they showed me how to do it too.
Right, and any experience like that coming in is also a help. If you can put things together, if you've done things like that, that shows that spatial ability and maybe, you know, mechanical ability. See if you have those things. And like at ETI, what else do you teach? I know you teach welding. Okay, I'm sorry. I know you teach welding. And we have hired from TCTC and ETI both. They're two of our favorite places to go to, you know, hire welders. So they're both awesome. Yes.
Well, we do have a one-year welding program that starts every 3 months. It's day or night. We also have a facilities maintenance, which is kind of a jack of all trades type of a training. Anything from HVAC to construction. There's some welding in that. More basic like the TIG or the tack welding and things like brazing, you know, soldering, things like that. For your plant, we also have a secretarial course, it's information management. But then we get into nursing and legal courses and medical courses too. But we have the welding 1 year, facilities 1 year program. And the office class is a 1 year program too.
And we will go out to places and interview there when a class is coming out, as we did at ETI and as we've done at TCTC. Yes?
Is it, so it's possible to, be going to school for your GED or diploma? It's possible to be going there and, able to hire?
Sometimes, yes. It depends on what we have open at the time. It depends on how a person interviews. You know, it depends on a lot of things. It depends on, you know, the person. That's why I was mentioning, if you do have interest in that, be sure to put that in a letter. And to, you know, include it with your application or your resume. And, you know, let us know what you're doing and what you're working toward. That's very important. So you're just not another, oh, here's an applicant, you know, because they had to apply because to keep their unemployment benefits or something. You know, we get that a lot too. You know, obviously people do not want to work with us, but we're like, okay, one of their 3 people.
Do you have to have a valid driver's license?
Yes, that helps. In order for you to get on our property, because we are going to check your ID when you come in, because there's one thing that people don't realize. The federal government makes us fill out this form called an I-9, and that I-9 form, we have to validate your identity and your ability to work in the country. So the driver's license is one of the allowable legal documents. That and about 3 others, including Social Security, birth certificate, or passport. And a lot of people don't have passports, so the driver's license is critical. And it has to be up to date, because if it's not up to date, we can't even use it. So if somebody does not have a driver's license, then they're probably going to have to get a ride to work. And they have to be there every day, because it's not an excuse, oh, well, my ride didn't come. That only goes over a couple of times, and then, you know, then the supervisors who have scheduled that person for a job that day that they need to get done, they're not too happy, because now they're scrambling, and then other people whose jobs aren't getting done now because people are moving there into that job, you know, it's not a pretty picture, so you don't want to be that person. Yes?
How many employees do you have?
About 80.
Like regular IDs would work?
A regular ID would work, as
So
long
you
as
didn't
it's a
mention
legal
that.
ID. Pardon me?
Because you said driver's license, like, I don't have a driver's license.
Well, you would have to get to work though, because if you
I got a
wouldn't
bike.
have a driver's license, we're probably not going to let you drive on our property,
I got a bike.
because we don't want the liability. That's a big thing with companies. We are hit with everything under the sun, so we don't like to add to it needlessly. So we would make sure that you're having a ride coming in and not trying to drive yourself without a driver's license, because then probably you're going to be picked up eventually anyway and won't be able to go to work. So we don't even want to go there. Anybody else?
I can hit drum.
Yes.
You said basic math, and you mentioned a few things. Like, what do you consider basic math? Just the
Well, it depends on what you're doing. If a person wants to go to fitting, the fitters are using a combination of geometry and algebra
okay.
a lot. They use geometry a lot, they use algebra a lot, and sometimes they actually use trig. They're putting the 2 together. They don't know it. We have not told them that for years. We didn't tell them what they were doing because we didn't want to scare them
But coming
into
in at
thinking like, man, I didn't even pay attention in school. Look what I'm doing every day. But
coming in at an entry level.
if they're the entry level, okay. Basic math, add, subtract, add numbers up, be able to read numbers, be able to accurately write numbers. Even the people on the burning machine, for instance, they may have 200 little parts this big, or like that shape, or all different shapes. Every one of those parts has to have like 15 numbers written on it, and they have to be accurate, because every single piece of metal in that shop is traced. We have to keep track of everything. So writing,
How do you guys
reading,
write it on?
math skill, you know, the math, and then geometry is great if they can do it. Any simple algebra, anything like that. But the basics, measurement, basic addition, subtraction, a ability to, you know, transfer numbers from here to here,
And then,
information,
walk around with the
understanding
calc- you don't walk
information,
around with a
you know,
calculator.
that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Alright, just curious, like you said, if you'd have metal parts, like you would have to write numbers on it. How are you gonna write on metal? I mean, other than burning it on?
We have some lovely little yellow pins. And our inspector uses a lovely green pin.
Oh, so you can actually see it on the metal? Okay. I was about to say, you go and burn it in, and you mess up one number, you have
No, you can
to
read
scrap it and get a whole new one.
You can read it and we can get it off. I've overstayed my welcome here. Any other questions? Well, I appreciate your attention today. I hope to see some of you in the future. Anybody, always contact us if you do have more information. If you'd like some basic math, we could probably put that together. If you'll send me an email and remind me, I can get those kinds of things together. But the ruler and tape measure, oh my gosh. I mean, we just about freaked out when we found out this person, and I'm not saying man or lady, could not read a tape measure and couldn't take a simple tape measure test, and had worked at another place doing a similar job for years. And the job is critical to be able to measure things. As almost every job in our plant, you have to measure things. So, you know, we're going to test you. So, once again. So thank you very much. Have a nice day, everybody.
Thank you very much.